Hello guys, welcome to today's class. So we're going to continue from where we stopped at the last lesson. This was the last React application we created. So I'm going to open it using our VS Code. So I'm going to drag it to our VS Code. That's one of the easiest way of opening our documents. In our last class, I said I'm going to do a recap of what we did in our last class. So here, this is a function. Alright, this is our app which is the root component. And this place we'll be writing all our JavaScript code. Then we're going to return it in HTML template. To do that, for example, I'm going to declare a variable, for instance, const user Godfrey, for instance. So here I'm going to return it using h1. So I'm going to return it. If you want to return it, you want to pass a dynamic value, you're going to use a curly brace. So whenever you're using a curly braces, React already knows you want to output a dynamic value or variables. I'm going to output a dynamic value because here we have already declare a variable. So I'm going to output a value here. So we are going to use a curly braces this place. Then I'm going to call it user. Okay, this is how to output it. To view this on your Chrome, on your browser, we need to run our server. To do that, we have to run go to our terminal. Alright, when you go to our terminal, I have to run our server. So you can see it's showing demo. So we're going to do npm start. Do npm start. It's going to start the server automatically. It's going to, you can see our server is running on localhost 3000. So it's going to output what we have done on our code. As you can see, Godfrey. So here we declare a variable, then we output the value here, right? So we can still do more things here. I told you to write in our JavaScript code here. Age equals to 30. Here to do the same thing. So I'm going to output it using a curly brace age. You can see the output here. Alright. So the only thing you can do here is passing a string and a number and also an array. You can't pass an object or a boolean. If you do that, it's going to give you an error. For example, when you say cost user here and cost person, we use a person. I want to use user. A person. I want to make it an object. Name of a person. Then the age. Person's age is 30. So when I come here and try to output it using person. You can see it's showing successful, but when you try to output it, but let's check our browser. You can see error. We are having all this error because why we are having error because we can't output a boolean or an object. This is called an object in JavaScript, so we cannot output an object. It's only string, a number, okay, or an array. So here we can also output a variable because what we did here now is to output to pass a dynamic value. You can also write a variable. You can also write a dynamic values directly. You can also do that by doing h1. Let me use h1. H1 a string name. Okay, it's showing error. I have to remove this. That's why we see that with the error on our browser. I have to delete that. So if we refresh, you can see name. So you can pass a value directly here. You can also pass a number. That is a string. You can also pass a number here. So using curly braces, a number. So what React sees all this as string. This number it sees as string. So it's 30. Array, you can also pass array here, h1, use the curly braces to put the array. So inside here we have an array 10, 20, 30. So when you refresh, you see. So React sees all these as a string. So that's how to pass a dynamic value. I also do something like href. Like so. Inside www.pgsoft.com, pgsoft.com. Yeah, we say visit us. So to do this in a simpler way because React makes our code to look cleaner and simpler. So I'll go here and say opacity called website. Then I'll have to cut this from here, this string, then put it here. Then here I'll call the website using a curly braces. I have to pass it the dynamic value, this website. Then put it here. So when you visit our site, you can just see it here. So that's how to pass a dynamic value in React. Right. So today we'll be treating the two types of components we have in React. In React, we have two types of components. We have the function component and we also have the class component. All right. So I'm going to show you what is function component and class component. You're going to see the difference. So I'm going to take you to the documentation of this course, that's React. You have to go to the documentation for you to understand what it means. So let's go to documentation. I'll take you to React documentation. So I'm going to search on React here. When you go to the documentation, let's let's use this one. Okay. So this is the documentation. Because we are talking about what is written today is components and props. So this is two types of components we have, function and the class component, which I said earlier. They say components lets you split the UI into independent. Yes, you can have different types of component. You can have many components as you want. It all depends on what you're working on, depending on the project you're working on. A component can be a nav bar, a component can be a footer, sidebar. All these things make that they are split into components that make up your site or the application you're working on. Alright. So a component let you split the UI into independent reusable pieces and think about each piece in isolation. This page provides an introduction to the idea of components. You can find a detailed components API here. So you can come here to documentation and read more about React and other topic. Alright. So conceptually, components are like JavaScript functions. They are self-arbitrary inputs called props. Props are called properties and return React elements describing what should appear on the screen. Okay. This is called a function component. The simplest way to define a component is write a JavaScript function. So we write a JavaScript function and we be inputting the props, we passing the props for it to appear on our screen like earlier stated here. So this is a function component and this is a class component. You can see from two of them they are different. They are different. This is a function, this is a class. So I want to do some examples. So come back here. I'm going to remove this from our root component. This is our root component. So I'm going to delete all this. So while working, you have to create small components, which I stated earlier. You can have a navbar, a footer, a sidebar, all these are called components. To do that, I will create a folder. That's how I work. So I don't want to write all the components here. I don't want it to be here. So I'm going to create my own folder and call this components. This is where all my components I'm working with is going to be. So inside here, I'm going to have my own navbar, which is I want to work on my navbar. I also have a navbar.js. Alright. So I'll create another component. Let me call it sidebar. I'll call it sidebar.js. Alright. So here is our root component and every other component will be nested inside this our root component. All these components I'm creating are going to be nested here. So here I'm going to write a function component here. I'm also going to write a class component here. So I'll be using these two as example. To do that, I have to install an extension called stateless function. I have to use a extension called simple react snippet. Yes, I have to install this too. So I'm going to install it. All right. So after installing it, so it will allow me to use SFC, that's stateless function component. So I'm going to install that. It's still installing. I'm going to wait a little bit for it to install. All right. You can see I've installed it. This extension. You have to install this extension too. simple React snippets. So we can use it. So I'm going to use it here. To do that, I'll do SFC. You can see stateless function component. I hit on enter. Then here we'll be writing our class, name of our class. So the class we are going to write here is going to be nav because I'm working on nav bar. I want to work on nav bar. You can call it anything. Okay, your class can be anything. So I will write nav. Okay. So let me start again. SFC. So I'll write nav. You can see. So this nav now is going to export by default now. It's going to export it for you. You can see this red sign showing here. So it's telling us that something has to be here. So I'm going to say div. I'm going to write div there. Alright. So this is how it should be. So as I've exported it now, export default now, I have to go to our root components and import it. To import it, I'll come here. I want to nest it here. To do that, I will say nav like so. You can see it's showing me here already. So I'll click it. I've imported it. You have to nest it here. If you don't do that, it's not going to anything you do on your nav bar. Think for instance, I say I H1 H1 for instance. Say good morning. Yeah. I say good morning. Yeah. Then let me check on. Let me go to React and you can see good morning here. Because why is showing here? Because I nested it. If I did not import it here, it's not going to show. Let me comment this out. If I should, if I did not import it, for instance, it's not going to show on our browser. So they say it's out. So you have to import it here. You have to nest it in our app. That's our root component. So this is how to write a function component. Alright. This is how to write a function component. For the class component I stated earlier, we'll go back to the documentation. If you go to documentation, this for the class. So I'm going to let me copy this. So we go to this place, go to our sidebar for file and paste it. So what it's saying, I'm going to explain because this is a class component. So our class is welcome. You can see the name of our class is welcome. So I'm going to change it to sidebar. So I'm going to change it to sidebar. It's going to start with capital letter sidebar. So that's the name of our class. That is the class. Sidebar is our class. Sidebar extends React dot component. Then it renders it. So it's going to render the the HTML. It's going to return it for us. It's going to render it. And the difference is that here we are going to import React because we extend React here. So we are going to import React here. So to do that, I will say import React. We're importing this from React. Okay. And here and this place. Okay. Let me remove this thing. This one. Let it be only return. Okay. So we have to export this because here this is our class sidebar. So we have to export our our class. So to do that, say export because here if you look here we use our class and we exported it. If you don't export it, you can't import it in our root cannot import in our root component, so I have to export by default. Export default, then the name of our class, which is this. Alright, so we go to our app and import it here to sidebar. You can see it's already showing for us, so I have to click it. So I've imported this successfully. Alright, that's how to use function, this function to write JavaScript function, this function component, and this is class component. The only difference that you have to import it, you have to import React because this class extend React dot component, and I also have to export it. Alright. So from here we can also pass dynamic value. Alright, to do that, we go to our root component for here. We can also pass a value. To do that, let me say um, name. Let me use name. Okay, full name. Use full name. Full name. Let me use my full name. And go through. Okay. So yeah, I want to pass a dynamic value. You can see it's nav. Alright. So here we are having nav as the class. So I want to pass it here. Alright. So what I'm going to do, remember if you want to pass a dynamic value, if you want to pass a value, you use props. You want to pass it as props to carry the properties of that class. Alright. So we're going to do props here. Then here we are going to pass it. So a prop is just an object. If you should console log props, we're going to say it's an object. So I'm going to pass it here. So I'm going to do props, right? Okay, let me just console log this prop so that you know what is props. Let me console log it. Let me log it to the console. So props. So you see what is props. Let's go to our console. Let's go to our console. Let's inspect it. So you can see props is an object. So if you open this, you can see the full name. You can see that. So to grab this full name for this this one to my name to appear to output on the screen here, to grab this object, because prop is object, to grab this full name, what we are going to do is to call the full name. So I'm going to what I'm going to do here is props. I'll say props dot full name. Remember, our root components here we have full name here. So I'm going to call this full name here. Make sure it is the same. Props dot full name. Alright. So I'm going to view it on our browser now. I'm going to go to our browser and view it. You can see, and Godfrey, good morning. Let me put a space here. So, and Godfrey, good morning. So that's how to pass a dynamic value. So in our class, you can also do it in our class. Go to our root component here. You can do say Okay, greetings for instance. Greetings, I like greetings. Like to greet. Okay, greetings. Um, welcome to Goodiesoft. Down to Goodiesoft company. Then welcome to Goodiesoft company. So to do that, I'm going to do the same thing here. So I'll go to this side by here. Alright, H1, H1, H1 here. So I'm going to pass it. To pass, remember you are using curly braces. So I'm going to do this. That's the difference. If you go to documentation, you see something like that. So we're going to use this dot props to pass it in. If you're using class, you're going to do this dot props dot, you call it, you call what you call this, we're going to call this greetings. For this value to output in our screen, let's use this dot props. All right, so let us check. So you can see welcome to the source component. So that is how to pass a dynamic value. All right, class we are using this dot props dot, then you call it. Why in our function we are using props dot phone. Before that you have to pass it here, you have to write props here. All right, so that is all for today. In our next class we'll be learning how to style our our HTML template. You can see it's just a plain black, right? Just a plain black. So you can also style it to any color of your choice. So in our next class we're going to continue from there. So do wait to subscribe. If you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, do wait to subscribe. Right, thank you.